What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Heavy Metallurgy Album Club. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Marty. I've wandered out of the woods after a nice long weekend with friends away camping. Had a lot of fun. Thanks to Logan and Rick for holding down the fort on Friday night. It was awesome. Cheers to you guys, and good to be back. I wandered out of the woods back into the sonic woods with tonight's pick. But before we get there, Kellen, how are you?
Doing all right. I've had a good amount of YouTube times after being away and kind of MIA for a while. So, yeah, I got a chance to record something over the weekend, and it just went up today. Just talking about playlist for my race.
Oh, nice.
So, if everyone wants to stop by and check that out, kind of things I was listening to over the course of the summer and leading into my event in September. But and then on Sunday I sat down with Jim and we put together an Evoken review, so that'll be coming your way here soon
tomorrow. It'll be up tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern time.
Soon enough. Even on Saturday I showed up briefly for an interesting gathering of a 5-year reunion. Anyway, it was turned into quite the chaos, but nonetheless, so I've had a lot of YouTube time here. Happy to kind of get back in the swing of things after being gone for a little bit. Things I've been spinning. This came in the mail this past week. Catharsis, Hope Against Hope. I've been really enjoying this record this year. And cool to have this band back on the scene after being gone for a while. Feels like something that I kind of needed to hear this year, so happy to have that now physical copy. A record that kind of goes along with the theme of my video that came out here today. I've been like so many times, even when I was up in Traverse City, went to Grand Rapids and to go record shopping with Marty, I almost picked this up, but I was like, I'll get around to it. It's been too long. But I finally have a physical copy of Verathron's The Crimson Temple.
Album rules. It's really good.
Oh, good. Yeah. I really enjoyed this record. And I think 23 Melanie did a video, I think, a review for the channel on it.
Yep.
Anyway, so you can check that out. But anyway, then a few other things. I pulled out some cassettes. So probably the one I'll show off for you is do not pronounce the Gasterine. It's Bosnian, so the pronunciation here is the project's from Bosnia. I completely do not know how to say, but it's kind of like evil feisty black metal. I'll just show up this J card here for you, so you got to get a chance to look at the artwork. But anyway. Cassette I've been spinning. So Shadow Dungeons are the project. Anyway, so cassette this week. And then one that I added to my collection is probably going to be part of my next video project, which probably be some time off. But I wanted to get this. This is probably one of my favorite thrash records ever. I wanted to get this on cassette, actually. So it'll be part of the video concept. But Peace Sells. Got this on as a combat, cassette, set it for a decent price. But anyway, got a chance to spin that carefully.
It's already doomed, bro.
Yeah. It's one of those like, how often do I go to this well? But nonetheless, absolutely love this thrash record. I have it on cassette. It's a nice little addition to the collection for me.
Very awesome. Nice. All right. Logan.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How you been?
I still look okay. I'm doing all right. It's been another busy YouTube week. I'm with Kellen. Hopefully, as I said, I look better than I did last week. I was rocking the sludgy 8-bit look. I was trying to look how Weed Eater sounds. So my bad. Hopefully this week goes well. There was a review today. Marty, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Go check it out. Cosmic Reaper, Charlotte, North Carolina stoner doom band. If you're a fan of Sleep, Black Sabbath, Wind Hand, Weed Eater, any of the bands that obviously I love, go check it out. It's a great album. Probably one of my favorites from this year. Bleed the Wicked, Drown the Damned is the name of it. So yeah, check out the review on Heavy Metallurgy. Rest in peace to Drew Struzan, the graphic artist who did like all of these posters. I went from not knowing who he was to realizing he literally did like every awesome movie poster I ever grew up like wanting to see, including The Thing. Happy Halloween. As far as what I've been spinning over the weekend, I was lucky enough to watch the Into the Void series on Hulu. I actually would recommend it. It's like heavy metallurgy, heavy metal, metallurgy. It's heavy metal and people who, like key figures who might have passed away while in the pursuit of all things heavy metal. And there's a couple cool episodes on there. There's a good one about death and Chuck Schuldiner, and one about the whole Judas Priest trial situation. And then there was one about Wendy O. Williams. So it was cool that she got her, own episode and chance to shine. And I've had this for a couple of years, but have not really spun it other than once or twice just to check it out. This is awesome. This doesn't sound like it was what the Plasmatics always sounded like. Like to me, this is them trying to take advantage of the 80s metal style, especially after watching that like quick documentary episode about her. But this is still sleazy, straight up hard rock 1980s metal. So fun, simple stuff. Wendy's voice is impressively powerful on here. She sounds pretty dirty, pretty sleazy. And then this came in from Southern Lord over the weekend. Thor's Hammer, Domad Gansnat. Shoot, I was on a stream with Roger over the weekend. I forgot to ask him how to pronounce this. But yeah, this is an interesting story for a release. So you get a girl from Norway visiting the Seattle scene, and over the span of 2 weeks, they basically come up with a band and release a demo and do a show. Thor's Hammers is pretty neat, like lightning in a bottle kind of project, and I think influential. So
brutal vocals,
finally
good brutal voice. Yeah.
It's cool. And then she went back to Norway and is now like some famous biologist of some kind. So cheers to her. And then a new Castle metal album was released this past weekend called, I think it's Morka. To Carry On is the name of it. I want to call it Mork, but I think it's Morka.
Cheers to Eric.
Yes. I knew some people.
They've been in the chat a bunch. Super nice. Hung out with them at Hammerheart. Awesome.
I believe CJ was the drummer on that album, and he was another part of the stream that we did on Saturday. So
they're playing the Dungeon synth. They're playing the Dungeon Synth Fest in Detroit this weekend. I think Justin Bowling is playing guitar in it as well. Vestibon's Bloodbox.
That's another one. Yeah, look at that. A lot of I didn't realize there were that many connections there.
A lot of Minnesotans in the mix.
But I was listening to that one, and then another Castle metal album from this year, Weld and Woe. Was it Far From the Light of Heaven? That new album is awesome. That might actually be a favorite of mine. But it made me want to go back and check out Obsequii, The Palms of Sorrowed Kings. This is their last one from 2019. So coming up on 6 years. But this still haunting, beautiful stuff. A lot of harpy interludes, which get me from time to time. So it feels a bit longer than I think it should just because of that. But it's still a great album. The melodies and stuff, just beautiful. And then a lot of Drudkh. So this is another one that I've been trying to just get more into, like Autumn Aurora, Blood in Our Wells. What a amazing album as well. Especially the last two tracks, Eternity and Ukrainian Insurgent Army. So yeah, happy and excited for Autumn Aurora tonight.
Jim.
Cool. Everybody, So I went back to my local record store and treated myself a little bit. Just got a couple things, but got an old copy of Wasp Live in the Raw. This is the original, was 89 press, I think. But yeah, if you haven't heard this, pretty good. I'm sure a lot of it's like overdubbed tracks, you know, but definitely the song "The Manable" and "Scream Until You Like It" are worth the price of admission. They're not any other albums that I know of, anyway. But yeah, good stuff. Lots of banter about Blackie's hatred for the PMRC on this, so it's always fun to listen to that. His little words, which I won't repeat here for them, but are pretty funny. Also found a OG of a Black Sabbath Eternal Idol, some Tony Martin love there. Got good stuff. I gotta say, back in the late 80s when these albums were out, like I was just like not a fan. I was like, man,
yeah,
they sounded pretty commercial to me. I just wasn't into it. But over the years, I've kind of softened to it, and I really appreciate Tony's voice now. And honestly, if you haven't heard the title track, I mean, it's dark, it's evil, it's a great trad doom song. The Eternal Idol is awesome. So yeah, highly recommended. It's definitely growing on me, and I plan on getting more Tony Martin era stuff. So good stuff.
Headless Cross is really good. Tear, really good.
Headless Cross is great. Yeah, I listened to that one after listening to this one, and yeah, I definitely want to pick that one up too. I mean, that's another one with the title track is just stellar. Mm-hmm. That song Nightwing is cool too. And because of Kellen and his love for this band, I was like, hey, I saw it and it was cheap, so I figured I'd pick it up. Got me some Defeated Sanity here. Disposal of the Dead. So it's good to play some technical brutal death metal, and yeah, man, this one's for you, bro. It definitely enjoyed the gurbles and the down tunes.
Brutes Magoots.
The Brutes Magoots, yeah.
All right. Good to see you, as always. And yeah, spent the weekend in the woods. A lot of music was spun, but like the debut Boston record, that was on. Almost damn near perfect record. Headless Cross was played. But around home, I've been listening to the third thing album, Aircraft. Got a copy relatively cheap off of eBay. I'm used to have all this early stuff as promos back in the day. Stupidly got rid of them, and now I'm getting into the band again. So it's like, God, shouldn't have given them away. But yeah, this is a Swedish band, Viking, pagan metal, friends with Monogarm, and they are somewhat similar to Monogarm. I think Monogarm's a bit more black metal infused, especially in the earlier stuff. They do a cover on here of Over the Hills and Far Away by Gary Moore. So yeah, good album. Been enjoying it. And I keep coming back to this one here. Mistress, Castles Conquered and Reclaimed. This is on I Void Hanger Records, and yeah, I was sitting in a pile of CDs someone gave me forever. I thought it was Dungeon Synth. I mean, you can look at it and think this is probably Dungeon Synth. I've been kind of out of the Dungeon Synth mood, but someone in the Discord, the Heavy Metallurgy Discord, showed it and said how awesome it was, black metal. I'm like, oh, I think I have that. Dug it out, been spinning it. I think it was Tyler, actually. Tyler, hey, what's up, man? Very good medieval inspired. It's not really castle metal, but there's like a medieval tinge, a playfulness in some of the riffs, if you will. It's really good record. It gets a little chaotic at times, but I've enjoyed it. I need to spend a little bit more time with it, but yeah, I keep kind of circling back to it. And of course, also I've been listening to a lot of this one, Autumn Aurora by Drudkh. And for those of you unaware, this is the band's second album. And Drudkh is a Ukrainian black metal band. It currently, is this the right thing? Yep. Currently consists of Roman Sayenko of Hate Forest and formerly Dark Ages, Thurios, former members of Astrophase and Hate Forest, Correct and Vlad, All four also were members of Blood of Kingu until it was disbanded. Their lyrics and artistic themes embrace Slavic mythology, Ukrainian nationalism. Many of the band's lyrics are derived from the works of 19th and 20th century Ukrainian poets. So yes, this is the band's second album, and it came out in 2004. First impressions, Logan.
Yes, this is was one of those easy weeks for me. Thank you, Jim. This is an early black metal album that I kind of discovered within the first year or so of getting into the genre. I like all the different album covers we got, by the way. I have never seen the one you just showed, Marty. I don't know if that was like the first press. This is the one I'm
it's
always...
an early press. I don't know if it's the first press, but it's early press.
This is the one I'm always familiar with and perfectly captures.
This is a supernal music pressing.
Yep, it perfectly captures the music, which to me this is the ultimate fall album. I mean,
it really is.
There's no album that transports you quite like this one to whatever fall scenery or kind of isolated location you want to be during the months of September and November. It's just the perfect transition of seasons and it captures it all in every single song, almost like a concept album. And it's beautiful, hypnotic, and kind of warm. It's one of those albums that feels uplifting to me. Like it kind of leaves me in a more positive spot than where I started with it, which is kind of rare for a black metal album. And I just think it's because it has that transportative quality to it, where you feel like you've gone on a journey, and a positive journey throughout its runtime. The band overall sounds extremely cohesive in, capturing the vibe and atmosphere that they're going for. It's almost somewhat minimalistic in the songwriting and in the focus, but I think that kind of within that lies the genius of this album and why it works. So this has been a must play for ever since I purchased it. Every single year I'll play it a couple times every fall, and this is my chance to do that. So yeah, cheers, Jim. Great pick. It was awesome to spend a week with this, and even though it's still not quite cool in New Orleans, I felt I had a little bit of beautiful mountain fall vibe with me thanks to this album.
Oh, it's hoodie weather up here. Leaves are changing.
I'm jealous. You guys camping too, man. I was jealous hearing that.
Well, we're in a cabin. It wasn't.
Well,
camping.
Still,
it wasn't hard. All right, Kellen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Logan did a great job sort of summing up the sound and kind of identity of this record altogether. For me, like the first time, I don't know, it was probably back in my early 2000s LimeWire days where I stumbled upon this before I actually got a physical copy of anything by the band. I do think, like, as much as I very much agree with what Logan has to say, probably revisiting it this past week was just how much I think a lot of the quote atmospheric black metal that I hear today really gets like souped up in this. This has kind of almost become like a bit of ubiquitous within what defines atmospheric black metal to me. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where as much as like I put this on my drive home following last week's Mortuary Drep episode with Ben when I was in Cincinnati, put it on the car for the drive home, and it was just completely, perfect driving music on the way home. And but I do think it'll be interesting tonight to hear everyone's thoughts revisiting it, just in terms of how well this is aged, given how much of the kind of genre sounds like this today. It kind of had a little bit of impact on my experience overall. So I'll kind of jump into that and move it on to Marty.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember really the first time I heard this. I think Forgotten Legends was where I started with this band, and that album was decent, but it was not fully fleshed out yet. Really super simplistic. It's been a long time since I spun. It's been a minute since I've spun this album as well too. I typically, when I'm in the mood for Drudkh, I go to Blood in Our Wells, The Swan Road, or Estrangement. Those three albums are really impactful, very, very, very impactful. But going back to this album this week, it was, man, perfect timing. And I don't remember it being this good, this solid. And obviously Roman and crew were kind of taking some spiritual cues musically from Burzum. We listened to the simplicity of Burzum, but with a better production and more passionate chord structures and melody lines. And it's one of this album in particular is one of those instances what you can do successfully with minimalism. Because minimalism can be a dirty word. It can be fantastic. It can be a dirty word. But the bands that, there's a fine line, I guess. A band that uses repetition too freely, typically you're boring, uninspired. But a band like this that has the right sound, they're not just playing power chords. There's layers here. There's like atypical chords being played, and a very ancient melody lines coming in, and it, instead of being boring and repetitious, it is hypnotic. So there's your fine line. You're either, when you start messing with repetition, you're boring, or you're genius and hypnotic. So Drudkh thankfully landed on the hypnotic scale. And yeah, this is one of those records. There's a couple songs on here that are just downright transportive. You just kind of get lost in the flow and the atmosphere, and we'll get into more of that later on. But yeah, they obviously built upon an influence by bands like Burzum and fleshed it out, made it their own, with, I don't know if it's like Ukrainian pagan folk mixed in to get those weird obtuse chords he's playing. Maybe it isn't even something hard he's playing. It's just strange tunings. I don't know. I watched this guy. I come across this guy that was playing a bunch of Drudkh covers, and he was like, his hand was like a freaking origami thing sliding up and down the neck. And I'm just like, wow, really? Is that hard? But yeah, great pick, Jim. What were your thoughts?
I think, and it's been so long now, I don't remember either, Mario, in terms of my first Drudkh album, but I think it was A Handful of Stars, that one that came out in, was it like 2010?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember liking it, but not like, completely being blown away by it or anything. And I don't remember if it was you or Jake. It was either you, Jake, or Jack. One of you guys was like, "Oh, you should listen to Autumn Aurora," and and it just so happened to be, around the Michigan fall, which, if you guys haven't experienced that, it's incredibly beautiful up there during the fall. The colors are extremely vibrant, and and so playing this record and listening to that, like, I mean, I was just kind of, blown away. I was, really taken aback by how, in my imagination, they were able to capture like the look and the feel of Autumn in song and in music.
Yep.
And it was, and there was many times I would go on, what they call a fall tour up north, driving around, our local environs and just playing this, at the time CD over and over again. Just driving around, and it was, as Marty was saying, it was the perfect record, for, to enjoy the fall color for. And it never left me about it. There's something just very emotive about its presentation, and I've been listening to it, every fall ever since, for over a decade now, well over a decade. So, but yeah, so that was my first experience from it, and I also like, Blood in Our Wells, which gets a lot of love. A lot of people talk about that one, and it's really great. But for me, it's this album that edges it out, and I think it's because it's so it's about the season, and it sounds and it feels like the season, and that really concrete connection with nature that is the focus and the theme of the record. is so strong. It sort of outweighs all the other releases for me, even though I have many of them. But this one's my favorite. So I guess now we go to question time, right, Maury?
Yep.
So this was kind of off the cuff a little, but you read a lot about Drudkh, and they don't typically publish their lyrics, and when they do that, they say, hey, we recite a lot of Ukrainian poetry and stuff like that. What does that, I'm kind of wondering, like, what does that do for you when you hear that a band like sort of just may take like somebody else's art in words like that? Like, hey, we have all these like guys that we follow as poets, and we're using them as their words as our lyrical focus. Does that sort of diminish your enjoyment of the album a little bit? Is that sort of a creative shortcut for you, or do you think as long as they're creating the music and the sound, that using someone else's terminology to kind of build upon their art is okay? Or do you feel that is a little bit of the easy way out, not writing your own lyrics?
Can I go first?
Sure.
Well, I'll put it this way. If they were reciting the lines from Star Wars, for instance, over there, I might have a little problem with it. Something like that. But a poet that's some old ass poet from a country I have no idea, haven't read, never heard of. Why not? I mean, chances are I'm not going to read their lyrics anyway. So when I was a kid, I devoured lyrics. As I've gotten older, years and years of disappointment. You don't always like the things you see in lyrics. So, or they're just dumb. I kind of stopped caring about lyrics. But yeah, it all depends on the source material, where it's from. If it's something that's beloved to me, I might be a bit annoyed. But other than that, in a case like this, it feels like it feels kind of right that they're doing it that way. It feels to me like, taking obscure Ukrainian poets from eons ago, then okay, I'm fine with it. Logan?
Your Star Wars reference made me think of someone turning Yoda's quote, "Fear's the path to the dark side," into black metal.
Yeah.
Anger leads to hate. I think that's a challenge, guys. I would honestly listen to that.
It's definitely a sludge band, that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, there are black metal bands doing that shit to Harry Potter nowadays.
I know.
There's a band called Slytherin out there. So
there's a power metal band called Sirius Black in the Harry Potter world too, as well. So yeah.
Yep. So bands can take inspiration from all kinds of crazy places, and
it is kind of the path of least resistance. I will say, Jim, I will agree. It's kind of the path of least resistance. But
do you feel like it's a cop out? I guess is that kind of the question, like where it's leading to? Are you like
writing lyrics
escaping from being? Yeah, and like oftentimes it's not about the lyrics when it comes to this kind of music. Like especially here. What are there like? There's 4 songs with lyrics out of 6. Or 3, I think 3 songs: Summoning the Rain, Sun Wheel, and Wind of the Night Forest. So yeah, it's only 50% of the album's track listing has lyrics.
I think this is one of the only albums of theirs that they didn't use somebody else's poetry and stuff. I think this was before they started doing that. So my thing was more like just in general of their discography. Do you feel like it diminished their artistry somewhat, or do you think it added to it, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
My gut instinct would have to be the third, because I didn't even realize that. For me, it does depend about the music itself and the focus of the album. And the focus to me with Drudkh is obviously the atmosphere and the guitars and synths and everything else that's going on in the background. Which is just really a vessel for whatever theme they want to portray. Like for Autumn Aurora, it speaks volumes without saying that much at all. As I said, there's only 3 songs with lyrics, but it conjures all these different images and ideas and thoughts just because of the tone and the feel of the music. And all the lyrics could be copied, and I think I would still be fine with it. I think same is somewhat true for a band like Summoning, right? Because when you were reading your question, it immediately made me think of them literally ripping off J.R.R. Tolkien like songs and passages, and
Which Summoning does. I mean, a
fits.
bunch of bands
It
does that.
fits. Yeah. I think it just fits with the music. So if I were to stumble upon like a heavy metal band or something that they were like singing the words of somebody else and that was the focus, maybe I'd feel a little bit different. But I think in this medium, it works to be able to use someone else's words, and I'm sure they're making it their own in their own way. But then at the same time, they're kind of rehashing it and rebranding it for a new generation. Like I don't know how old that poetry is. I'm sure it's relatively old, so I feel like there's probably a bit of repurposing there, which adds more artistic credit. But yeah, I mean, I think it could go either way depending on the instance.
Kellen.
So it does matter to me, and I think there is meaning and purpose to it. And probably my appreciation of the lyrics of the poetry and poets in question is probably somewhat limited. One, because for example, here, I don't know for you have like Logan and Marty, you have the physical copies there right with you. Now, are they publishing even the Ukrainian lyrics? Are they in Cyrillic there in your
the version I have is just a picture. There's no lyrics at all.
Right. So I think there's something interesting specifically happening here, right? There's something of value and meaning. One, I think there's a certain degree within black metal of like anonymity and speculation and not publishing them, but trying to at least imply, right? There's something implicit and they're trying to convey. Well, I don't know what they're singing, right? Not because in terms of the vocal performance, but the actual lyrical content. Even if I could understand them, I wouldn't know wouldn't speak the language. But I imagine if you are Ukrainian and you speak the language and you hear this music and the themes that they're trying to articulate, I think it is probably very meaningful for you. So many of these themes specifically are talking about a country that's been dealing with a specific relationship with sort of Russian oppression for a long, long time, right? And with a central theme is a certain kind of Ukrainian nationalism, a pride of their country, a certain degree of autonomy and liberty that they want as a people.
Yeah.
I imagine if you are Ukrainian and you were performing these songs and you were hearing this content, it is meaningful to you, right? So I do think like there is 100% artistic purpose in their performative quality. And I think to the artists who are, pulling these poems into their songs, they probably have very specific sort of personal meaning to them. So my appreciation and of them is probably limited. I would say though, like to Marty's point, or even to Logan, what they're saying in terms of, I don't know how valuable they are here, right? Because what Drudkh does incredibly well is at least they articulate, I think, the emotion that I should be experiencing with the music.
And that's that's a huge selling point for me in this context. The lyrics are secondary to the way the music makes me feel.
Right. So, I mean, for someone like, I could go and I could read the poetry, I could research all the poets that they're referencing here, and I would probably gain some knowledge and like a sort of value in terms of what this record has to say. But at some point, I do think, to their credit, at least I can listen to this record and I feel at least some kind of Ukrainian sort of heroic pride, or what they're trying to convey in terms of the lyrical content and their affinity towards the nation and its history. So I just think I'm probably limited in how far I can reach into that story based on being an American who doesn't speak the language.
What do you think, Jim?
I'm a little biased, I went to college, for English literatures, and, so did a lot of reading and poetry and stuff like that, and so, I think with I have a little bit of an acceptance towards saying like, hey, I've got this art, but it's incomplete, and what can I do to elevate it? I want it to be elevated, and I don't maybe think I have the capacity to maybe write what I want to write for this music lyrically, where it'll achieve that elevation, and maybe I can utilize these tools that are available to me from my country and its history, um, and use someone else's words to get that point across. So I think I'm a little more forgiving of it than maybe some would be. When I first read it, I was like, oh, it's kind of a bummer. I was like, I would like for them to, be continuing to write their own, lyrics as they, even though I don't know what they're saying in Ukrainian, it's black metal vocals. I don't usually care about it anyway. As a listener and a musician, I kind of want, the whole package to be, generally speaking, done and done by the artists themselves. I mean? Maybe reference other materials, but to kind of recite them wholeheartedly is different. But in this context, though, because they're pulling from a source that is treasured in their country, their own literature, their own poetry, and stuff like that. I can understand, the drive to use that work to maybe lend a little more legitimacy to what you're trying to push forward as your own art. And hey, as long as everybody else in your neighborhood's okay with it too, then then why not, right? But speaking, like, I agree with you, Marty. Really, for me, it's all about, and this is generally what most metal with unintelligible vocals for me is about, is how does it make me feel, right? I'm not a teenager anymore. I don't pour over lyrics and J cards like I do, or nowadays I'd have to get like a magnifying glass out to read those.
Yeah.
But even when I get an LP now and the font's bigger than my face, I typically just kind of give it a quick scan, look at
like, ooh, picture is pretty, and then put it back in the
slide it back into the jacket. Yeah. So yeah, it really is all about the overall sound and the vibe. So but yeah, someone asking chat, like, I wonder, if they're, how they're feeling about all this stuff with the war and all that. And and I can only guess that since Ukraine has only been free since 1991, that they sort of felt that it was almost that they were in an unstable place, that they could get reabsorbed at any point, right? And that maybe almost it was an inevitability. I mean, even if you read in their history, they were only free for a few brief years before the Russian Revolution. And then immediately they were carved up by Russia and then Czechoslovakia and all those guys. And so they've been trying to fight for their own voice for so long. And I bet they kind of feel down, but also probably not surprised that this happened. And, one of the poets that they reference was actually killed in, he spoke up for Ukraine, and he was killed in a concentration camp during World War II. So, these guys, their history is fraught with horror. There was the Holodomor famine that killed like 3 or 4 million of their people, and it was there's all kinds of terrible things that they've been through. But I hope that this music can serve as a light, in a really dark place for not only them as the musicians themselves, but anyone else that can hear the music and feel something. So anyway, thanks for you guys' input on that question. I was wondering what your thoughts were.
Yeah, recently, I don't know if it was this year. I think it was this year. Their old drummer was killed fighting for Ukraine in the war. So, yep, it's affects everyone. Discuss musicality and composition of Autumn Aurora. Logan.
Yeah, so it was honestly kind of tough initially trying to dive in to the musicality here and get like nitpicky about what they're doing and what they're not doing, because there's something so inherently simplistic and hypnotic about this album and the music within that it kind of goes against what you want to do as a listener, to try to pigeonhole certain things and dive into the layers. It just kind of washes over you, and you want to just sit back and let it happen and kind of bask in the rhythmic sensation of this album, because it is very rhythmic and it has this repetitive nature that it makes me think of post metal a little bit, or post rock, or just like this ebb and flow kind of thing. And that might be initially why I was able to get into this album so much, because I started out as a big fan of those two styles of music, and I can definitely hear that in here as well. I definitely agree. With Jim, was it you or was it Kellen? Kellen, you said that a lot of atmospheric black metal pays homage to this day to this, and I absolutely agree with that.
It's
I think
so true.
Yeah,
it's really true.
Like, especially when we get to the production, I think even that's like very much lifted. Like Wolves in the Throne Room's whole catalog, in a way, owes credit to some of the stuff done on here. And I did have the question or the thought, like, when did atmospheric black metal kind of become a thing? For like, was it a thing back in the 90s with like Burzum and Over, Bergtat in Summoning, or were those just like black metal bands being more atmospheric, and it didn't become its own scene until like the 2000s, where bands like Drudkh kind of made it their whole sound? Side question.
I don't know. I think you mentioned like Ulver and Burzum. I think those two are very instrumental in what the scene is today.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I would still call it its own scene, but it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing. It's a subset within.
There's these labels that specialize in it. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but
yeah, right.
Oh, Bindrune, yeah. But to me, this seems like a high watermark and a big point for the atmospheric black metal scene, especially one that wants to tie specifically into nature and the world around us, the natural world around us. So those were kind of like the first thoughts, but then actually diving into the music itself, I said it feels cyclical, like it washes over you, mainly because of the guitar performance and the synths and the keys, which really do a great job of trading off, like being the lead thing that you're focusing on. Like it opens with Summoning of Rain, which is kind of more of a guitar led, which the guitar in that track makes me think of Summoning a little bit, and like that's some of those stronghold like guitar lines from that album, where it's like kind of warm but sharp melodic hooks that are kind of pushing the album forward. But then at the same time, it's because the band is moving at quite a steady pace. It doesn't sound like Summoning, so it kind of rips you from that. But yeah, I love how it trades off from being the guitar to the synths, because then it transitions into the next song where it's like these warm just waves of synth lines rush over you on Glare of Autumn. So those two tracks do a great job of kind of demonstrating the different tricks of the trade that Drudkh have on here. Another highlight is when the guitar chooses to break out just a little bit into like kind of a lead thing, like later on in the album.
They continued on with it, and they're very rocky leads.
Yeah,
there's like licks and shit. Yeah,
it is. The licks are cool when they pop up on tracks like Sunwheel and the Night Forests, Wind of the Night Forests. That one little guitar lick, 5 minutes and 20 seconds or whatever, gets me every time. I'm kind of blown away by it, because it kind of pops out at you in a surprising way, like a fish jumping out of water. Like you don't expect it in just this wave after wave of just melody. And this album is just so melodious and uplifting the whole time, and it really does transport you. Like makes me think of specific moments of being out in nature, like hiking on the Blue Ridge Parkway in North Carolina, or running from like a rainstorm somewhere. It's not many albums do that this well. So I think that's why I always return to this, just because of how many memories are attached to it and how it kind of is like a little time capsule of this time of year for me. Big highlight for actual performances, the drummer who on here is Yuri Sinitsky, which I didn't realize that guy's been in a lot of stuff. He was a guest session drummer on this album, but I think he does a lot in making this album move and flow with the power that it does. Like, it has a lot of rhythmic intensity, you know, like a lot of black metal drummers will like just ride on that very simple drum beat, but not Yuri. There's a lot of interesting tom patterns.
He's a good drummer.
Hi-hat. He's a very good drummer.
In a lot of this minimalistic black metal, the drummers aren't good. So they hide behind the wash of distortion, and just, you know, Varg was a prime example. He couldn't change time, so he had to stop and punch in to play the next part. So it's a thing.
And they changed time or rhythm on like a dime. You know, from within a song, they'll go back and forth, and it's a unique touch, I think, that makes Drudkh a little bit more special compared to the rest of the bands out there. And this album, especially, like the way the tom rolls and the ride patterns and the hi-hat patterns he plays, but he can still break it down and do a very simple drum beat. Like there's a section of Glare of Autumn, which sounds like the most basic black metal beat you could do, but it sounds good. And thanks to the production, which we'll get to, it sounds very much up front and, you know, driving. So, yeah, very bright and hopeful album overall, but still has a little bit of black metal sinister feel to it, thanks to the guitar work and stuff. And yeah, captures the vibe and the feel this time of year. So I will let the next person wax poetic.
Kellen.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with Logan in terms of the tone of this record. It feels to me like it was a time when black metal was trying to experiment in terms of like the emotional range that you could potentially go through. Just because I think Logan mentioned it earlier, this record does not feel sinister to me. It does not feel threatening to me. It is a kind of what the genre was initially known for, but here we come to the 21st century, really. And I almost want to say there's a particular kind of ilk of black metal bands that are coming from this part of the world. I do think like the further you go in terms of Central, Eastern Europe, the melodic sensibility changes. You know, you were talking about sort of the chord shaping that's going on in some of the live videos, Marty. Like the melodic quality of this feels distinctly from a like sort of Slavic tradition.
Yeah.
By comparison to like a Scandinavian one. So I do think that is a like major shift in terms of tone for the record. We'll get to production notes here, but yeah, the guitars to me have this sort of, I mean, it is flush with synthesizers over the course of this. There's a lot of interesting sort of fuzzy layering. I'm 100% like, I'm not surprised what black metal became in terms of even its more sort of negative connotations in more recent years when you listen to how like shoegazy this is to me in terms of its production style. But the thing that kind of grounds it is that Ukrainian sort of heroism, that kind of like triumphant tone over the course of this. It's interesting listening to this because I got to tell you, I don't know, I lost track of how many times I listened to it this past week, just because of how easy this record is to listen to.
And you want to be lost in it. When it hits certain parts of the album, I just want to close my eyes and be standing in the woods and listening to it, you know?
So like, this is like the great, I guess my criticism for the songwriting style. This record exists for me in like great moments. And then because of its repetitive sort of nature, almost a series of diminishing returns. Meaning, like, I'll just use this one moment as an example. The transition that happens from Summoning the Rain into Glare of Autumn. So Summoning the Rain actually ends with a bit more of an aggressive sort of black metal closing moment. It's like one of the two riffs on that song right? Because you were just getting lost in the sort of venture of it. It transitions, we get like a rain sample, and then everything comes back together, right? So when I listen to this record, those moments of arrival, like when the major theme for each song is introduced, it like brought me back to the record, right? Like I'm robbed of my haze sort of little venture, and I'm like, oh wait, this is this song, right? I want to identify with this moment. What happens though is because they only, for the majority of these songs, there are like exceptions to this. I'll slightly disagree with Logan here. Like Wind of the Night Forest is probably the greatest exception for me. I do think there is some more structural sort of components happening there. They're a little bit more diverse.
That is my favorite song on the album. That song utterly rules.
It's I think a little bit unique because for the first part of this record, I almost feel like there's a seamlessness to it. And I kind of get lost in the songs, and I'm less concerned about the songwriting and more just like the overall sort of sinking into the experience, right? And there's like a little bit of me that feels like it starts to turn into wallpaper, which I don't think is necessarily a compliment to a record, right? So it's these moments where like, okay, we get a great sort of riff was reintroduced, a new song begins, and I lock into it. And then I kind of, as it goes on, I start to fall asleep. And the next song comes on and like I get back engaged. It has that sort of experience for me. So it's almost like it's too easy to listen to at times. And I found myself like on repeat. Now, I should say when I was streaming it, like I could decidedly tell when it would kick over to a different record, right? Like when the algorithm sends me to a different song, meaning like there's enough of an identity here to make it sort of specific to this band and to this record. Where I was like, hey, go back to the beginning of Autumn Aurora, please. Like I'll go back and repeat it. And I had no problem re-listening to it. But every single time I was hoping to be like, man, this is so easy to listen to. I'm going to memorize all these songs, right? And I didn't have that experience. It was overall just kind of like sinking into the experience. So that's kind of the one criticism I have for this record. But I think also this band, right, is I think people will appreciate it if that's something you're willing to lock into as a sound. And I 100% agree. Like this is a nature record, right? Like this is 100, like trying to grasp into what it means to be specifically in a kind of geography that they want to highlight and a kind of national history that they want to explore. But in terms of me listening this past week, I just kind of would let it slowly evaporate in front of me. And I kind of had that experience. That's like the one criticism I have in terms of the songwriting that maybe be problematic for some people.
All right, Jim.
So I think this record, musicality and composition, really what it boils down to is this is forest bathing in sound, that's really what it is. It's that same experience of walking through the woods, smelling the damp earth or petrichor and, hearing the wind through the trees and, and just being in the moment. And when you're listening to those sort of repetitive riffs with those kind of soothing sense over it, that's what it's to me. It's emulating. It's emulating, the wind through the forest, and so the Wind of the Night Forest is highly appropriate as the title of the song because night or day, that's what it, emulates for me. And so, that to me is where, the genius lies in music, because I'm not able to really put my finger on, what about that sound makes me feel that way. It may be a combination of different things. I think, Kellen hit the nail on the head earlier when he said, their riff writing is definitely more distinctly Eastern European. And I think that's a part of it. It comes from that place, that era of folk, as opposed to like the Scandinavian era of folk, even though that's about the woods, it's also more about the winter. Where here we're talking about the woods, but we're talking about autumn. So maybe that's a part of it. And even for me, like I've always even loved the cover of it. And yeah, I know it's not the original cover. The original cover didn't have as many colors, but it's this repressed one that's in our background right here. And on my repress, that's my favorite one because I feel like this is far more fall, and so, I think that, for any musician, for you to sit down and say, okay, thematically, we're going to write an album about autumn, and then to be able to write music to support that, is a testament to how talented you really are, because I certainly wouldn't know where to begin, I'm not saying that I've got all the answers, but I'm just saying that I recognize there's difficulty, in achieving that. And so I commend them for their capabilities there. And there is still metal here, there's double bass here. We've mentioned the good drumming here, and yeah, he's a session drummer, but him switching from beats and then going on to the hi-hat and running the hi-hat again, that gives me that feeling of wind in the trees, that movement. Even the session drummer was making choices to kind of emulate elements of the natural world, and then we get taken out of it with like a shred-tastic solo like Wind of the Night Force, where he's just like doing scales just super fast.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, he's like super shredding here for a minute. And I love that. I love that. And for me, it's those moments like that. How Wind of the Night Force is straight into the black metal, the double bass of which one is it? What I'm thinking of specifically is I think it's Glare of Autumn. And kind of that waltzy riff that is in Sunwheel. That those elements of metal are all still there for me. But yes, this I do think this is an album that's easy to listen to. There isn't that sort of jarring dissonance or jarring blast beats are going to carry you out of it. But I also think that if they were here, that this album wouldn't be as meaningful to me or as emotionally resonant. So I for one, I'm glad that they made those choices to, while it's still metal, to not sacrifice the mood and the ethereal nature of the composition to just be heavier and to be more challenging. Sometimes I feel that it takes just as much, if not more, effort to show restraint in your songwriting than it is to throw everything into the pot and say, you know what, I could do this, so I'm going to do this. And this is an album about restraint. This is an album about a ritualistic, mesmerizing tonality that's pervasive, and I love that when I'm driving, when I'm hiking through the woods, when I'm in that place at work where I'm just allowed to just do my thing and not be bothered, and when I'm in those moments, those to use a buzzword, those moments of flow, this is a perfect moment for that, and a kind of a soundtrack to you not having to pick something apart and letting your mind rest. So for me, the genius of the composition is that it's peaceful, man. It's somehow peaceful black metal, which those three words put together sounds strange even coming out of my mouth, but that's exactly what this is, and that's why it's great.
It's centering. It's very centering.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
For me, I agree with everything you guys are saying here. But for me, as a musician, I find myself when writing to be very much conscious and eager to change to the next part. I want changes. I want to unnecessarily complicate things, which I've been trying to get better with over the years. But I listen to something like this album and the patience the musician's patience that has gone into this, and belief that their material is strong enough, has got enough melodically going on to allow the listener to follow along with you, get lost in this hypnotic dirge, essentially. It's there's just a confidence there and a patience that I respect. I think it's very cool. And the fact that I listened to this album, and like Kellen said, it's very easy to listen to. There is a moment on the album where, before I go there, the patience, and they're getting a lot of mileage out of riffs because of a very energetic drummer, a drummer that isn't just playing sloppily out of time, kick, snare, kick, snare. There's some very energetic double bass work. There's some exciting tom fills that aren't just at the end of a measure. It's actually part of the measure. It's part of lifting up or hurling along these chord progressions. And, from start to finish, there is, I am pulled into the hypnotic, the world building, the escapism, all of it, until they get to Sunwheel. It's not a track that I dislike. I think the song is very good, but it's got a bit of light to it. There's a lightheartedness to it. Like Jim said, there's a waltz there. It's kind of there's a happy feel to it. It's like, even though the music is kind of centering and calming, it kind of puts me in a despondent mood. And there's that one song that kind of tries to take me out of that. No, I want to be here. This is where I want to be, in this despondent wash. But they utilize Drudkh, is one thing they've done on albums after this very well too. They lull you in with these very melodically rich dirges, and then they always pull that key change right at the right moment, and it happens a couple times on this album. They're very poignant key changes that, like, it's like, holy shit. It's just like completely flips the song around on its end to still in the same flow, but just a different way of looking at it. And I love that. I love that subtle twist, that subtle change in emotion. So yeah, for me, the songwriting and composition on here, built on patience, built on confidence that your material is strong enough to be worthy of so much repetition. And they really do a good job at knowing when to change. So excellent. From my perspective, I think it's really well done. Production. Logan.
The production is natural sounding, kind of beautiful and warm, and definitely, but at the same time, it's not clean or overproduced. Like, it still sounds like a black metal production. So I think it kind of perfectly nails it. And as I said, like, I'm a big Wolves in the Throne Room fan, especially to Hunters, and like listening, I just picked up this album, actually, same Southern Lord sale, but listening to this, the production from Autumn Aurora to like all of the Wolf stuff sounds like copy and pasted. It just has this warm, you're kind of in the field, frolicking kind of vibe to it, like a summer night, or like a kind of just warmer feel than what you would associate with black metal, which I always thought was a cool and unique vibe, and something that made it different than the average black metal production leading up through the 90s. Like, I can't think of a kind of production of the 90s that has this kind of uplifting feel to it. Maybe Bergtat.
Bergtat's very warm.
Yeah,
it's a very warm, organic sounding.
So could be from that. And I guess Philosophim can kind of sound like that at times. But at the same time, it still feels somewhat claustrophobic, like it's a wall of sound coming at you. Like, you're still contained within this world, which really only a black metal production can do. I like the walls, and like the ceiling of the world here is basically all guitars and synths, and I like the guitar tone especially. It seems to range from this very warm and uplifting vibe, like the melody lines of Summoning of Rain, and of course all of Sunwheel. But then at times it can go a bit like cold and more traditional black metal in vibes. The guitar can, but then when the guitar is like sounds a bit more sinister, that's when the synths and the keys sound right up front, very symphonic. Like this almost is like a symphonic black metal album at times.
I really like the synth sound they
Forward
use and
it
the way
is.
they use them.
It's so
very
cool. It feels like a warm blanket, like a cover of clouds over top of everything. So really, you just have the guitars and the synths, just this warm blanket over the rest of the music, and it's fully immersive. There's, as I said, it still feels like a enclosed space that you're in, and then you have the drums, which I think once again are perfectly produced and perfectly placed in the mix. The drum performance itself is top notch, and I think you can tell because it's very much up front. But because you have the guitars and the synths up top, they're not competing for the same space.
Yep.
It's all separate. One thing which I honestly don't know if I realized until like just now, the vocals kind of blend into everything. Like I can hardly remember vocal lines from this album. To me, that's not the point of it. The point is the repetition of the music and the instruments. But yeah, I think the vocals kind of blend into the background of just the world that
they're certainly not the focal point.
No.
But I do appreciate them being there. They kind of act like an anchor,
In
an anchor
in a
to
similar
this
way
realm.
that the drums kind of do. Because for me, the drums are the anchor, the grounding point, the point that makes it feel of this earth and they change the momentum of the songs and the feel of the music to me. And I guess the vocals kind of do that in a way as well. I often just get so lost in what the keys and the guitar are doing that, vocals are the furthest from my mind. I guess one point, the bass is nowhere to be found. I mean, I think it's somewhere in here, but this is
it peeks out on occasion.
It does.
It's kind of weird sounding
now and then.
Yeah,
but I'm like, is that the bass or is that just another like just offshoot of what the guitar sounds like, or but it's not the point. It's not the point of the production to have clean bass that you can hear. I think it all works for the album, and it does feel warm, beautiful, natural, and even, I guess, as I see Wade saying here, grand and majestic at times. So yeah, no issue with the production.
Kellen.
Yeah, so soft, gentle, like there's enough sort of distortion with the guitars. I think I can identify where they're coming from, but there's that lit from within melody. The keys do so much of the melodic heavy lifting on this record. That it completely sort of immerses that mid-range space. You are 100%. I don't know who mentioned it earlier, but like I think it was, maybe Jim mentioned this is sort of like bathing, right? It has, right, which is if you think texturally, that is a very different place from like scathing. It does not have those like sharp edges to it. This is much more of a smooth, rounded off kind of listen. I do agree, like in terms of what Logan's saying, the vocals are coarse enough. They're just so sparse. I don't feel like they play a dominant role within the listen. And I'm happy when I do hear them, but lyrically, this is not an album that I immediately sort of think of the vocal work being done. The drums, I also think, do match the overall aesthetic of this record, meaning they sound kind of smooth. The performance quality, I agree with what you're saying, is like he's probably the most like dynamic individual throughout this listen. How he's trying to operate within all the repetitive kind of riffing, but I do think that his drum sound is, while clear, is a little bit more gentle as well. It doesn't sort of pop or crack through the mix. It's much more sort of like rolling through the entirety of this listen. So I really don't have any problems with the production as much as it sort of feels like it is 100% a part of the package here. The production totally, I think, matches the kind of sound and theme that they want to sort of have on display. So no problems there.
Jim.
So little to no bass, man.
It's there on headphones. It peaks out on occasion. It's kind of weird sounding.
It's there. It's very hard to hear.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
And honestly, man, this is one of the very few albums where it just doesn't bother me. Which is, I'm sure everybody that knows me or watch this, so I can't believe Jim's saying that. I am a defender of metal bass, and I want it more, and I want it up front. But on this record, so much of what it, moves me is due to the overall effect of the sound as a whole. Like, I wouldn't want to introduce anything that could change that, So, that being the case, me enjoying sort of the, mesmerizing ritualistic factor, of the music, if that introduction would be a distraction for me, I'm okay with it being buried, like the vocals are buried. This is guitars up front, synths up front. Even the drums are louder than the vocals and the bass, which is fine. I believe Wade said in the chat, I thought it was a really cool comment. He's like, even some of the cymbal work here sounds like rain. And man, he nailed it on the head. If on Wind of the Night Forest, the drummer has a closed hi-hat and he's kind of hitting it, with these sort of hits, and the way that it sounds when he's hitting that closed hi-hat, it sounds like raindrops hitting. It's really, really cool. Again, every choice made to support the theme of Autumn. Every musical choice, every sound choice is made in deference to that goal. And so the production is a piece of that. Just like Kellen said, they went to extreme lengths to make sure that the effect of the record outweighs sort of the individual kind of contributions. It's more like everything kind of as a whole, and the production reflects that. Everything is a wash over you, and nothing kind of takes you out of it. So I do think those were all blatant choices, to make sure that dreary, kind of somber, melancholy atmosphere is the main takeaway of the listen. And so the production's in service to that. The guitars have that black metal thinness to them. The drums sound very live and organic. The vocals are pure black metal, but like Kellen said, they're sparse and they're underneath everything else. And I think that just serves that creation of that vibe that is the primary intent of the record. So no complaints for me, on the production. I think you guys already said everything and said it better than I, but it's actually one of my things I like about the record the most. It is one of the strongest contributors, to that overall, essence that kind of comes over you while you're listening to it. Is the choices in the studio that brought a very specific balance or imbalance, if you will, since some things are kind of buried between the instrumentation to serve that, vibe you're getting as you're listening to it. So yeah, no complaints to me there on the production.
Sorry, my kid was saying goodnight. My turn, right?
Yes, I think so.
What are we talking about? Production. Yeah, I have, agree. The fact that I think Kellen said it's very rounded off, and it that allows an aura of organic feel to come in, and the production allows light when the songs need it. The production allows the mist to seep in when it's needed. And the keyboards, even though they're pretty simplistic, they're placed remarkably well, and I love the tone. The sounds he chose, there's like a brighter tone. It isn't this dense, deep, church organ thing. There's like a shimmer over the top of these guitars that sometimes just really empowers them. And the production allows space for all this to happen. It's not brick walled. It's not redlined. All the terms. It isn't too loud. Everything is kind of where it needs to be. The bass is a little, but like Jim said, I don't care. I'm not listening for Steve Harris bass runs on here. It's out of place. It's out of place for what the music is. But for me, the production really, on the vocals too, I do like where the vocals sit in the mix. I like the fact that he isn't following the riffs verbatim. He's, like Tyler said, kind of creating their own instrument with it. It's just kind of a place, an organic, kind of creepy. His voice on some of these songs against the melody juxtaposition is kind of creepy, and it's awesome. It's a really awesome anchor, keeping you, from fully astral projecting out of your body. There's a few little things they do, whether it's those rock riffs that come in and like snaps you out of the trance, or if it's the drum, the energetic drum work, or those vocals. It kind of keeps you anchored when your spirit kind of wants to escape and go into this musical soundscape. But let's talk about least favorite songs. Kellen.
Unmute. All right. So I think we've already kind of talked about Wind of the Night Forest. It takes a little bit to get there, right, throughout this listen. But when I sat down and very deliberately tried to parse through these individual songs, I think that one stands out as like the encapsulation of this record to the greatest extent. Meaning there's enough diversity in the songwriting there. The ambient qualities are 100% on display. We have a solo through it. At almost 10 minutes long, like, it is a great sort of mission statement to what Autumn Aurora is all about. Yep. So if I'm going to like identify one song that I will, steer you towards, like I mentioned, I think, you already brought up sort of the opening moments on Sunwheel. Like, I talked about the transition from Summoning the Rain to Glare of Autumn. A lot of this record is just about like enjoying these transitions. You have a major theme arrives. To Marty's point, like, the key changes or transitions dynamically, they don't happen a lot. But when they do happen, right, it is noticeable, and there are decided turns. So I would say, like, the one moment though, that to close the first Snow, like, I don't need that 9 minutes of it, but the first minute of that song always brings me back to Burzum. It sounds so much like Did Some Ngangvar. And
they took the intro of that song and made a whole song out of it. It's very cool. Yeah.
For me, that's like one of those moments that's absolutely crystalline in my memory in terms of an experience with this genre. The beginning of that song always reminds me of that, the opening moments to the Burzum record. So like I said, my major complaints, there's not like a single like fail here. It is my criticism though is, I think potentially people who are looking for a greater sort of diverse attempt at songwriting may be a little bit turned off by this record. It is a little bit more of a, you lock in, you enjoy sort of the 40 minutes. It's relatively short. If you told me this was 30 minutes long, I would have believed you, just because of digestible it is.
Yeah.
So that's probably the one criticism I'll have into the songwriting, is like, there's nothing that's really going to disappoint you, just so long as you are committed to what they're all about.
Logan.
Yeah, as someone who's a fan of locking in and being immersed in a sonic scape, basically back what Kellen said there. And I think there's no bad songs or moments on here. I mean, it kind of moves like a concept album, essentially, from the fading light of summer to the first rain, like the last rains of summer, into like the warm days of autumn and the chilly nights, and then finally closing out with the first snow. I just love the whole package, and it's so seamlessly presented as one cohesive unit to me. Like, it's so easy to just listen to this whole thing and not even be aware of songs, not be aware of any individual moments besides maybe the transition into Sun Wheel and certain changes in Wind of the Night Forest. But looking into the songs individually, I think my favorite two tracks favorite moments happen actually in the beginning with Summoning the Rain and Glitter of Autumn. Just like the opening intensity and trade-offs between the guitars and synths on these two songs just capture me every time and really hook me in for the long haul. For the longest time, I thought they were just one track because that's just how it feels. You know, it's the transition from rain into glare of autumn is so seamless, and it feels like just the next chronological step. And I love how the one song, Summoning the Rain, is very guitar led. Like, it actually has like a lead guitar, which, as I said, reminds me of Summoning. And then we get to Glare of Autumn, which is more synth led. And it just has these like billowing barrage of synths that are just so rhythmic and entrancing. And I love what the drums are doing too, because the whole time they're switching back and forth between a somewhat simplistic beat into this rolling double bass like ensemble. So it's very cool to hear the change ups that the drummer's doing. I really like Sun Wheel. It is indeed like an interesting spot and choice.
Yeah,
but it makes me think of, you know, the really bright, beautiful summer days, or no, fall days where there's not a cloud in the sky, and it's, you know, one of the best times of year for sure. It makes me think of, I went on this hike in the North Carolina mountains where you're hiking up the mountains, you're all in the woods, and then at the top, where you get to a certain point where there's not as many trees and it's all bushes, and you just like enter into this whole open world where it's just bright as can be. So you're going from like darkness to light in an instance. And that's what Glare of Autumn into Sun Wheel kind of makes me think of, like just sun hitting your face and you're kind of basking in it. And that whole song has that feel. And I love the guitar tone of it. It's hauntingly beautiful. And yeah, very unique style of black metal song for me. For this week of listening, Wind of the Night Forest kind of took on the biggest growth for me. It's not like I never liked the song, it just always was a afterthought for what came before. But yeah, there's a lot more going on here than the other tracks, and especially when the guitar lead pops out about 5 minutes in, it's so cool. Probably one of the best moments on the album. Beautiful second half that really builds to the climax, and then it kind of just ebbs away with the first snow, which I like it. It doesn't need to be 9 minutes. I think we can.
It doesn't feel like 9 minutes to
but
me. It doesn't bother me. I love that trance it gives me. It's very repetitive, but I love it.
For me, the reason I like it, and I mean I can accept the criticism, but I like it because it feels like that moment where you're standing in nature and time kind of stops and you're just there, like just kind of basking it all in, and you're not paying attention to really anything else. It's just a moment caught in time, and that's kind of what the first snow reminds me of and makes me think of. So I listened to it the whole way through every single time, and you know, I could see it being a little bit long, but the fact that this is only a 40-minute listen, I think it works for what it is. So yeah, I guess no real complaints here.
Awesome. Jim.
All right. Yeah, I have to give props to Fading, which is, you know, essentially just more of an intro for Summoning the Rain at the very beginning of the album. But I just love the combination of acoustic guitar, nature sounds there, and how it fades into Summoning the Rain. You know, just that opener is important to me because it established to me like the vibe that is for me unique to this record, and it was unique to me experiencing it even as someone that was familiar with Drudkh already, but with their later stuff, and I immediately I was transported to a different world. So the fact that kind of 1-2 punch of that very brief track and then the first real song, Summoning the Rain, introduced me to that realm, if you will. I have to give it props here, for that. There are no bad songs here. I do love them all. Glare of Autumn. I really, here we go back into an acoustic guitar at the end of Summoning Rain and into Glare of Autumn, like Kellen was saying. I like the kind of big open strums there. It almost reminds me of like Alice in Chains a little bit, the way there's just these big open
Don't
strums.
ruin this for me.
Yeah.
Don't ruin this for me. Although I do like some Alice in Chains, but I don't want to think about Alice in Chains when I'm listening to Drew. So.
Well, to me, that's high praise.
Right on.
But immediately it's that moment of like piece is kind of broken up with some really soul piercing synth lines. The double bass comes in, and then you're kind of brought into that mystical realm a little bit. So, but yeah, Sunwheel is awesome, even though it is sunny, with the synths. it is sort of skies parting and you get some sun rays here, but hey, that's all right, man. It's still black metal, and it's still, there's some, as it gets to the end, there when they go into that lower key change, and you mentioned this earlier, Marty, how they'll do these like sudden shifts of key, and then that's where the emotional impact happens. I really think at the end of Sunwheel, it happens there about 5:45.
That's exactly, it rules. Yeah,
I love, that's my favorite part of the
song.
And
then after that, the riffs get more traditional black metal style. I don't know if you've noticed, they're darker.
They are, man. It really heightens the feeling of the melancholy and the tension there, and then that leads right into Winds of the Night Forest and that is where most of the heaviness resides, the most variety of riffs, the more pushing against the established fog of sound that they had, all happens there. But it turns out being, like Kellen said, I do think this is the best example of what the album is, and it's the most well-rounded song on the record. So I really, really love it. My least favorite moment on the album is the first snow, not because I don't like it, but I do think it's too long. I don't really need 9 minutes of it. And in that melody line actually is the same one as the melody line in Fading. It's just played very briefly in Fading, and they bring it back and they sort of expound on it. So you're kind of introduced to it already, and then they bring it back, but then it goes on a little long. So I just wish it was shorter, or even better, I wish we had another song there. And so take the first snow, make it half as long, and give us one more track, one more full-on track. I would have really loved that. And that's kind of something I've felt about the first snow forever. Even though I like it and it's great to drive to. I've always wished it was shorter, and/or that we could have gotten just one more song out of it. But a minor criticism, just an honest one. It's a great album, but it's not perfect. But it, besides that, for me, it is. But yeah, that's it for tracks. So definitely for me, Summoning the Rain and Wind of the Night Forest, but they're all good.
I feel like I've kind of gone through most of my points here, but I wrote so much poetic crap in these notes you wouldn't believe it. It's ridiculous. But I will say, Summoning the Rain, I really do like the opening, the melody line. There's it's very sweeping and densely atmospheric, over the densely atmospheric chord progression. The melody line's got a lot of grit in it, which is interesting, but yet it kind of weeps with this unique misery. It right away we're kind of focusing on this Ukrainian folk pagan thing, and he's approaching the chord progressions and the melodies differently, and that is endlessly refreshing. It just is. I mean, it's closest, I think, probably to Norwegian, but it's still different. It's just different. I like the grit they put in that weird little guitar line in there, but oh, so much poetic crap. I'm not even going to read it. I do like A Glare of Autumn. I like the fact that the acoustic guitar intro, it kind of continues to take you deeper into the forest and somehow your own contemplative thoughts. This is where the album starts to get pretty cerebral for me. The first album kind of the first song sets it up, and then I just kind of start to fall into the expansiveness and the expression of it and the emotion of it. I will say Sunwheel, I mentioned, I like the song a lot. It's weird where it is. It kind of takes me out of that trance. But yeah, The Wind of the Night Forest. This song is really great. It's really, really a great song. Yeah, the flow and emotional pull of the riffs on this one, they get me every single time. I just want this song to be double the length. I love the pulsing feel, the down-picked playing style on here. It's almost like the riffs are born in a river, and they're just constantly moving and working their way around any obstacle that's in their path. That's the way that down picking, it creates like this hypnotic pulse. It's awesome. And the way he plays with the melody lines within that, it's really, really cool, really interesting. And the amazing use of the minimal synth on this one. And I really also like the way the vocals are perfectly placed, never following the riff. They're just kind of lurking within the space to add that creepy dimension. Yeah, this to me is this is world building music here. This is a song that I would have liked another one like it, but they end the album with The First Snow, which again, Kellen nailed it. In fact, Hvis Lasset Taros, the opening track is Det Som and Gangvar. The opening moments of that is like they took that and said, okay, I like this idea. I'm going to make it sound better. I'm going to make everything better. I'm just going to go on with it for 9 minutes. Very hypnotic. And I'm fine with it. Like I said, it's one of those tracks that I didn't need it to be anything more than it was. It was just a emotional, hypnotic piece. I'm wandering like I did Saturday morning. I went on a long walk by myself into the autumn forest, and it was awesome. I wish I had this on headphones when I did it. I wasn't thinking. I just wanted to be, it would have been the perfect companion on this. But yeah, again, not a bad song on this record. But I will say, I'll save that for my closing thoughts. Judgment, final thoughts. Jim.
All right. Picker goes first. I'm the picky, maybe.
Oh, you're a picker.
What do you mean?
Oh, well, what do you mean?
So yeah, obviously I chose the album for this week. Straight up, man, this is one of my all-time favorite black metal records. There's so many black metal albums I've heard over the years and own that I never return to or rarely return to. But yeah, that's also due to the fact there's just so much good out there and there's so much new stuff always coming, but there are certain records that I always return to. And, one of them would be like Transylvanian Hunger, for instance. Pretty much anything by Agalloch. But for Drudkh, like this album, I always come back to Autumn Aurora. Every year, and when I see the leaves start to come, and even down here in Florida, I've got some kind of weird tree. I don't know what it's called, but I actually have one tree that changes color in the backyard. And I don't know what it is. I can't remember what it's called. But it does change color. And my little taste of that, or whenever I, have the good fortune of going back up north for a brief time in the fall, like this is the album I want to hear every time. I can't disassociate Autumn and Autumn Aurora. Like they mean a lot to me together, and they're together in mind and in spirit. So, this album, on my scale of buy, would buy, must buy, this is absolute must buy for me. If you want a record that can, perfectly emulate what it's like to experience the fall season, this is that album for you. The only thing that comes close to me is October Rust by Typo Negative, which I almost picked for this week. And maybe I'll do that one next year. But those two records both are all about the fall. And yeah, that's it.
All right. Logan, good pick, Jim.
So, yeah, I mean, I basically agree with Jim. Similar relationship with this album where it's a seasonal release. Every year I play this without fail. This was this year's iteration, which awesome that I got to do it on Heavy Metallurgy with y'all. It's a special album. I love it. It just feels like such a cohesive piece, perfectly summarizing just the experience of seasonal transition and being outside of nature during this time. And I love it. It definitely is. It's probably up in like a top 10 or top 15, like black metal, list for me. It just feels so mesmerizing. You can get lost in it so easily. If I were to try to introduce someone to black metal, this would be one of the earlier albums I would show, just because it does have that characteristic of softness, as I think some people mentioned tonight. It feels, thank you, Kellen. Yes, it feels soft and caressing. It's not a harsh, sharp-edged object to your cranium. It just is a warm blanket of autumn breeze, and I love it. It's endlessly listenable. It's a high watermark, and I do think it stands the test of time for the genre, and it feels like it's influenced a lot of other bands out there, in my opinion. And that was something I hadn't really thought about, like the origins of, an atmospheric black metal scene. But this album certainly belongs in that conversation, I think. So a near perfect album, which is only maybe hampered by certain sections going on a little too long. I guess it could be like 6 minutes, but it's a frequent listen and something I will always return to every year. It's like a 9.25 out of 10 for me. So great pick.
Kellen.
Yeah, I think, for people who maybe are just joining now or who catch this and forgot the beginning part of our conversation, there are a few other recommendations from Drudkh that you need to check out. This is probably one of them that would be up there in their catalog. How do I want to say this? It is a great glimpse in terms of a continuation within a specific side of black metal. Meaning, kind of to Marty's point about what was happening and sort of the way that parts of Scandinavia really introduced a concentration on nature as a thematic sort of source of like influence. I think Drudkh is doing that one in a very different sort of geography, but also sort of expanding on that in terms of the sonic template. It kind of makes it their own.
Influenced by culture.
Yeah, it's influenced by culture, by history, which has kind of been the talking points that Jim brought up, this evening in terms of Ukrainian history. So, and they have this is what they do, right? Like, there's no avant-garde jazz section to the Drudkh catalog. You know what I mean? Like, this is who they are. If you're about that kind of commitment to sort of a pagan natural world side of black metal, this is 100% going to be your thing, and probably one of the most important bands to contribute to the genre. So a lot of good stuff to check out from this band. In terms of where I'd rank them in my favorite black metal records, there's probably ones I would choose ahead of them, but I think in terms of Jim's mission from last week this is a 100% album that would go along with what's happening seasonally. Mission accomplished, right? Mm-hmm. It is 100% on point. And there's no way anyone listening to this could potentially, in my mind, deny that this has a very kind of specific natural world appeal.
Yep. All right. Yeah, for me, I love this record. I think it's great. But I think the band tightened up things a bit and fixed some of the not many errors on here, but they fixed things. They got better at songwriting as they went on. I think the albums that follow this are better. I think, but this album is definitely better than Forgotten Legends. That album was good, but a little bit sloppy. This here is where they're starting to really show what they're capable of and doing. And for me, it's a 9 out of 10 all day long. And it's perfect for this time of year. It is the type of black metal I just like getting lost in. And I think it's simplistic, but never gets old. This is an album you can chew on after repeated listens and be okay with it. And it isn't because of all the riff trickery. It's all what's in here. It brings out what's in here, and they do a really great job of holding that mirror sonically up to your face and seeing yourself and seeing the world around you. And it's awesome. For that, I think it's great. It's really, it gives the living natural world decibels. It translates the feeling you get walking in the woods to music. And I think it's really awesome. That's a really cool thing. So yeah, that's that. Before we have Logan let us know what he's picking next week, I just want to say belated happy birthday to our brother Jim, Morbid Crank, who turned 52 on Saturday. So cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Thank you, guys.
And
all right. Now that's a mug. So going with another artist who I feel like is synonymous with this time of year, and especially October, I had to pick one of his albums. This might not be the one that you would expect, though. For those thinking, oh, is this a cult, brutal, dark, black and death metal album? No, this is Danzig 4.
Danzig 4.
Danzig 4. So,
don't speak. I love that. I love that record.
Oh,
I do. Yeah.
All right. Yep. Gonna slum it with some Danzig next week.
Is it a name or is it just Danzig 4?
Danzig 4.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
You guys are gonna have a blast. I can't wait.
I love the first 4 Danzig records, so I'm all for it.
Cool. I have a CDR of the first Danzig. I own no Misfits. I own no Samhain or Samhain. I own no Danzig physical. So kind of tells you what although I do like the first album. I just don't own a copy of it. I burned a CDR of it, but we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting. That's what this is here for.
It's gonna be fun.
It will be fun.
Cool. Show notes for Heavy Metallurgy. Check out today a Cosmic Reaper and / Bog Wizard review dropped thanks to Logan. That's up on the site now. Dropped today at 12:30. Tomorrow there will be a collaborative review between Jim and Kellen for the new Evoken record. It's a lengthy one. It's very in depth. Get ready for that. It's freaking awesome. And Friday, Roger is joining us to talk about 90s thrash metal. And Logan, what have you got coming up?
Oh man. Well, as I said, a lot of stuff was uploaded to YouTube this past week with me in it. The review earlier today, I put a collection update on Thursday on my channel. First upload in a while.
Damn it. I've been so out of the loop. I need to catch up with y'all. I've been in the woods and farting around and yeah.
Oh, good. I had a blast with Rick on his channel, kind of holding the torch for Marty and Alan while they were
for that.
Doing their thing and taking a much needed day off. So cheers to you guys for doing what you do.
Well, thanks.
And then, yeah, the Saturday stream with Jeff. A lot of streaming. So that's enough. Go check out one of those.
And Kellen, too, has some new stuff up.
Yeah, so new video on my channel talking about Greek black metal and sort of my 100-mile attempt. So that went up here this evening. And then, as Marty mentioned, you can catch me tomorrow on Heavy Metallurgy with Jim.
12:30 Eastern?
Talking about Mendacium from Evoken. So, funny stuff on my end.
Sweet. Jim?
Well, my news is entirely up to you, Marty. Did you finish doing the artwork for that?
I have not. I'm gonna work with it. It'll be done by the weekend, if not sooner. Yeah. Well, it'll be ready for review by then.
You like how I throw you under the bus on the show, man?
I'm a good speed bump, whatever.
All good. Yep, that's all I got going on besides that Evoking review with Kellen, which she graciously invited me to do. It was a really fun collab, and as long as I can do it that way with a friend and not stare alone at a screen, then yeah, I will do more of those. So.
This is the first gym review, right?
Yeah.
First one.
Exciting.
More coming too, by the sound of it. He's been bit by the bug, people.
Yeah. It was fun having a conversation with Kellen. You're not going to see me stare at a screen by myself, but I'll hang out.
You never say never. You just don't do it. Why do you even do that? I'm never gonna do it. Then it'll be a month later, be like, hey, this is Jim from Heavy Metallurgy. Yeah, here I am with my first review. It's gonna happen.
Maybe another 3 years.
Yeah, never know. Well, right on. Great show, great turnout, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you like a little bit more of this interaction throughout the week, go click the link and go to our Heavy Metallurgy Discord server community, where all you fine folks are jibber jabbering all week long about metal and other things. It's a lot of fun, good community. Yeah, good community. Great. Very active bunch. So check it out. That's it. Tomorrow, Evoking, Friday, Roger. Cheers, everybody. We will see you then.